Okay, and hello and welcome. My name is Martin, and today what we're going to be doing is we will be talking about collision settings and how to apply them and how that's going to change certain aspects of the game for us. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to sort of set up a couple of little platforms. So let's go ahead and type in the word platform. Depending on what kind of packs you've got, you may have something that will come in. Let's see how big this thing is. That's pretty big. Let's shrink it down a little bit. That'll probably be okay there. And let's go and stick this next to a wall. Okay, let's make it to where our character might be able to jump or walk on there if necessary. Let's put that down maybe a little bit further. Okay, so we got ourselves a nice little raised platform. Not too bad. Okay, from there, the next thing that we want to do is we want to grab a geometry. We'll put it back here. And this is going to end up being like an area that we're going to put text on. So let's go ahead and make this like a small flat wall. So having it selected, we're going to go into its brush settings. And let's make this, I don't know, let's say 500. Oops, I hit the delete key instead of the end key. There we go. And let's make it a little bit flatter. It doesn't need to come out that far. Let's make it a bit wider. Okay, that's very good right there. All right, so now what we want to do is let's go ahead and grab this and push it back just a little bit. And this will end up serving as the area that we're going to write information on. We're going to use the text tool, and we're actually going to sit there and write information on this. Okay, there we go. And what we'll probably end up doing with this is just looking for the for that wall material that we see when we bring in a static mesh. So I'm just going to type in wall. We'll go into material, and I'm sure I've got that. There it is, basic wall. Okay, at that point we could probably go ahead and select all the surfaces and apply that to all the surfaces. And then that way we should have our nice little thing so we can start writing text on. Okay, so from there, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into our basics, and we're going to grab a couple of cubes, and we're actually going to put these out on the floor. Okay, so we'll hit the end key. And I'm just going to hit Alt to make one, and then Alt to make another one, and then we'll hit End, and we'll grab all three, and we'll just shift that over into the corner. Okay, this way we'll be able to see the information here and then apply that to the bricks or the things that we are going to play around with there. So now that we have that, let's just see what we've actually got. So we're going to push play, and let me walk over there. Should probably get my character a little bit closer, but this is fine. Okay, so we'll see right now that if I shoot at the geometry does not move, right? But if I shoot at the static meshes, they also do not move, right? So nothing is being moved by anything. Let me see if I can run up to them so nothing's happening. Okay, so we're going to hit escape and go out. So basically, the reason for this is if we select one of these and we go into the details panel, we'll see that we actually have quite a bit of options for this. So the first thing that we'll see is that we have physics, and we also have collisions. And in transform, we have what's called static, stationary, and movable. So those are going to be the three things that are going to allow us to be able to create different effects inside of these static meshes, right? Based on what they interact with. So the first thing that we're going to talk about really is the mobility. So what we're saying with mobility is that if this object is non-movable, meaning, and that's why it's up here with the transform information, because with the transform information, this would be important for the rest of the computer to know. And the reason why the system needs to know is because things like lights need to be built. So if something is going to be in the game that for sure is never going to move, and you have a light setup that's hitting those objects and creating the shadows, well, then the computer can save a lot of energy knowing that, hey, this is all I have to do. This will never change. That shadow right there will never be anything other than shadow, so I don't have to come up with any new information in case that stuff moves around. So then the next thing is going to be a stationary. So a stationary, the object itself doesn't move, but maybe something in the object has an animation that does move. So at that point, there is some movement in the object, but the placement of the object itself doesn't move. So a stationary object can be changed in the game, but cannot be moved, and enabled cache light methods. Okay. So really a lot of this is having to deal with light too, right? And now a movable object, the actual physical position of the object will change in the game. And when that happens, the shadows have to go with them. So if we look at movable, it says movable objects can be moved and changed in the game. Total dynamic has the dynamic shadow and then slows down rendering, right? So when you hover over these, they'll actually tell you this is the fastest rendering. This is not going to, it's going to go to pre-programmed places where the shadows would be for those movements, and then this one it just has to like build that stuff on the fly as the game is playing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, let's say, that object. I'm going to make this object movable, this object's going to stay stationary, and this object's going to stay stationary. So let's push play again. Okay. So we noticed one thing, that nothing happened. And that's okay, because there's other things that we need to also do to this to make sure that it knows that it can move. So the next thing down on this box, on the top box, that we're going to do is we're going to simulate physics. And theoretically, just by clicking that, I should be able to play this now, and I should get some type of mobility. Now that I've told the object that it can be movable. There we go. So see now that the object itself can move. The other static meshes are not moving, so I can walk up to them and touch them and they're not moving. But this one I can shoot and it moved with my bullet, or with the Nerf ball. I call it a Nerf ball. And it is also moving when I run into it, right? Now, there's a lot of movement in that. Right? So, I mean, that thing gets shot and it can fly over a fence. So there's other things that we need to talk about, right? So let's go and hit escape, and let's go back to that top cube. So now that we have movable selected and we have physics turned on, we have dynamic shadows. The game knows that this object is movable and can be, its position can change. Now what we need to do is create a little bit of play around with maybe some of the effects that are happening here in physics. So right away we saw that this thing was really light, right? Like it moved and it was just like boom, and it flew over a fence. So we can actually add weight to this. So mass in kilograms means that we are actually applying weight to this, which will then work with the gravity or the physics engine to keep it down, right? So the first one, let's say, is 100. I don't feel like that's going to be too different from what we were seeing before. It might not. It's a little different. It feels a little heavier. It's still flying. I think there it goes, right? So yeah, it's still a little bit of pressure makes it move a long way. So now let's make this thing, I don't know, 1,000 pounds, right? So 1,000 kilograms. So now we're going to type in 1,000 there, and let's push play. Oh, that thing's not moving quite as much, is it? We can still move it. And I guess I have enough force to be able to move 1,000 kilograms, which is interesting. As a character, I mean. Okay, so there's that. All right, so now we've seen how we can apply some type of weight to things. Obviously, gravity's working because it's pushing it towards the ground. But let's say you wanted something not to react to gravity quite as much as other things. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm actually going to go to these boxes. And what I'm going to do is make them all movable, right, so that they can move. And then we're going to apply physics to both of them. So we're going to apply physics. And on the first box, I'm going to make this one, let's say 100. This one is going to be, let's say 500. And on the 500 one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of this, right? So I'm going to go here and find out where the color was. And let's go back here. And let's see if we can find just some other color. Let's say that. So I'm not going to apply the color up here to the material. I'm going to apply it to the one that's out there. Otherwise, I might get it to go to all of them. So it's better to do it to the child down here than to the parent object up here. So, and then let's go to this one. And on this one, let's say we'll give it that color so we know what it is. And this one's got the 1,000 pounds, right? So 100. 500. Oop, we didn't change the weight. Let's change the weight to 500. And this one's going to be 1,000. Now, theoretically, to gravity, this one should come down faster. This one should come down a little bit less. And this one should have obviously less. Now, we're going to do something else to this, though. I'm going to go to the top one, the one that's 1,000, and I'm going to actually bring the damper up to, let's say, 0.5. Right? So now with that, let's see what happens. So we're going to push play. And I'm going to walk over there first before I start shooting, because I purposely want to shoot the bottom one out. So where'd the other one go? It's way over there. So we're not seeing as much movement with it. All right, so next thing that we're going to do is, let's see. Let's bring this number way up. I want to make this number, let's say 20. Because I wasn't getting the effect that I wanted. I thought it was maybe a scale of 1 from 0 to 1. Let's see if by applying a factor of 20 I get a different effect. There we go. See how long it took that thing to hit the ground? All right. So, and you know what? I'm going to set this up even better so we can see it even better. Let's grab this guy and let's put him way up here. Hit the end key. Okay, so now we're going to push play. And theoretically what should happen now is that the other two are affected by gravity normally, but the one up there, its linear dampening has been set to 20. And look at how much slower it takes to hit the ground. It's still working with physics. If I hit it, it gets the force, so I can spin it, and then it's doing some weird stuff with gravity. There could be like a whole game made out of something like that. Okay, very cool. So that's what I wanted to show you with that. Okay, and what we've talked about so far is the mobility, whether the object is static, whether it is a stationary object, which maybe something in the object moves, but the object itself's location does not, and then the move. And then we understand the relationship between this and lighting, where static is going to render faster because the shadows are always going to be in the same place and nothing's going to affect it. A stationary means that maybe something you want light, maybe you want the light or the shadow to follow around it, or something in the object is moving, so the shadow needs to be dynamic to some extent, but the object itself is not going to move. And then the other thing is where you have obviously the movable object, which is going to need dynamic shadows, which are going to need to follow it. From there, the other thing that we saw is the physics. We touched lightly on how to add the template or simulate physics. We added that. And then we looked at how to change the weight and how that affected how things moved. Then we put linear dampening to show you that something can move slower or faster depending on how you want it to react with gravity. And you could also, let's say, enable gravity off. So at that point, what would happen is if I shot those two right there, this thing would just stay in. You know what? Let's do that for fun. I'm going to leave that green one up there. We'll throw that thing off, and we'll end with this demo. Theoretically, it should ignore gravity. So now it's not falling. The linear dampening is still doing its thing where it's reacting slower or faster to other objects. Let me see if I can get up there and hit it. Nope. So that thing will just end up going faster and faster and faster if nothing else runs into it. Pretty neat. Okay, very cool. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and in the next video we'll talk about collision settings. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.